Welcome to the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer for the Union-Tribune. There's Ryan Finley. He's the sports editor of the Union-Tribune. I am in San Francisco. Padres about to play 3 games against the Giants after playing 4 games against them last week. It's one of my favorite terms in baseball, an obscure term, the semi-repeater. That's when you play a team twice in 3 series. So what happens is you have a lot of the same pitchers going, and we'll get into that. Who's pitching for each team? Giants home opener tomorrow as we tape this on Thursday. Ryan, where would you like to start?
Yeah, I'd like to start by going through the Cardinals series just briefly. The Padres took 1 of 3, winning Wednesday afternoon's 3rd game in semi-dramatic fashion. Kevin, you wrote about it today. Yesterday's win seems significant in part because it prevents a sweep, in part because of how the Padres did it. Robert Suarez pitched more than an inning to get a save, which apparently you can do in San Diego now. And Kyle Higashioka, who I don't believe had a hit all season, delivered a pretty key home run. Start wherever you'd like with those 2 guys.
Yeah, Higashioka had given you the golden sombrero, the 4 strikeouts in his first Padres game. That had been on Saturday. So he felt much better yesterday. Where in the 4th inning, Joe Musgrove, who pitched very, very well. We can get into that later if you'd like. It was like old school Joe, and you could tell right at the start. And that's how it is with a lot of the good pitchers, and it's how it is with Joe. You go, oh, look at that swing. Look at that swing. Oh, look at that take. Joe's on. But in the 4th inning, ran into a little bit of trouble. Of course, Wilson Contreras was involved because he kills the Padres. But a 2-0 lead had become 2-1. And there was a runner on first, and then there was a strikeout and a throw him out. That's 1 caught stealing. Then there's another runner on first. A run scored because of that hit. The guy on first, he takes off. Higashioka with another caught stealing. That's impressive enough. Hasn't happened a lot with 2 Padres catchers throwing out two runners in the same inning. Kyle Higashioka is the second batter in the bottom of the 4th inning, and he gets his first Padres hit, and it's a home run, a no-doubter to left field. That had happened 6 times, or it had happened 5 times. He's the 6th catcher since 1961 in all of the major leagues to do that. I thought, you could check my newsletter out, I thought it was great. He's like, yeah, that's cool. Doesn't a whole lot of stuff have to happen? And then we had this long conversation there in the clubhouse about that being one of my favorite things, these obscure, or this one's not arbitrary, or arbitrary stats, these things you can do in baseball with all the numbers of, well, on a Wednesday in the West Coast at 4:00, this is the first guy to ever do this. I love that stuff. I'll stay up all night researching that for the newsletter. But Kyle Higashioka, big day, and Robert Suarez, big day. I did. It was the 9th game, Ryan. You used the word significant. It was the 9th game, but man, that would have been a bad loss.
Yeah, it would have been a bad series loss to get swept by a Cardinals team that, at the bottom half of their order, Kevin, maybe not players who your average fan knows a whole lot about. A lot of young guys. It seems like they're not rebuilding. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it seems like they're infusing some young talent to go with, the Nolan Arenados, the Paul Goldschmidts, et cetera. Getting swept at home by them probably would not have been a good look. Kevin, catching has been, I think, one of the real bright spots on this team so far this season, starting with Luis Campusano. I was out at the ballpark with you guys on Tuesday night, and, as he got yet another hit, I turned to you or Jeff or maybe both of you and said, how many catchers in baseball can hit? He's one of them. He's one of them. The Padres
5.
have.
Yeah, 5. And I'm writing a story on today. It'll be on the website later. He started 70 games in the major leagues. That was his 70th start. And it's just, I don't know, man. I was there in Oakland when he came up in September 4th, 2020 and hit a home run in his 4th plate appearance. That seems like a long time ago. And we're talking about 70 games that this guy's played. Let me tell you something. Over his last 101 plate appearances, he's batting .376, 400, .554. That dates to August 30th of last year. That's 6 doubles, 4 home runs, 38 for 101 in that span. This kid, I believe it is now, of his 70 starts. In 21 of them, he's had multiple hits. That's 2 or 3 hits. Like, this guy is something. And it's interesting that, and Jeff Sanders wrote about it in spring, where he talked about the lockers of Ethan Salas and Luis Campusano being near each other. And it's the catcher of the future and the former catcher of the future, who is the catcher of the present, and that's Luis Campusano. And I think it's one of the really, really good stories on the Padres right now.
He's always been able to hit, Kevin, and has hit at most levels. What is he doing a little bit differently to really hit this year?
Yeah, it's funny. You talk to different scouts and different people in the organization, and some are like, I think he's going to be an okay major league hitter. I know that's what people talk about, but I love this kid's defense. And you talk to others, it's like, I think there's really a lot of potential in this bat. I mean, Jeff said something to me the other day. Obviously, he said it knowing that it's early in the season, and Will Smith is. I'm assuming Jeff knows this, but Will Smith is in the division and in the league. But like, you don't have to do much to be an all-star catcher, right? Like
Offensively, no.
Yeah. So what's he doing a little different? Well, I have gone back and watched a lot of video because Campusano alerted me that he had done some of these things before. It's the consistency with which he has, and again, I'm always going to do this because I don't like to feel silly, like I'm some sort of too inside baseball. I'm not a coach, I'm not a scout, but you do see that Campusano's hands are out in front. His leg kick is more pronounced. It's a timing thing. It's a being ready thing. It's a lot of movement. It's crazy. I quote Victor Martinez in this story about how, Victor Martinez, new hitting coach, he's like, that's a lot of movement. And then he sees how Campusano works so hard and makes adjustments, and he's like, I ain't touching that. This kid trusts what he's doing. It's good. And, that's what a good hitting coach does, right? You got a lot of pupils who do a lot of different things, and he's letting Campy be Campy. Again, like I said, look, Campusano, you didn't have to – I'm not going to betray a whole bunch of stuff, behind the scenes stuff, but you just had to kind of watch his usage under Bob Melvin. This new regime is good for Luis Campusano.
Was the concern, and again, we don't want to talk about Bob Melvin on every podcast, Kevin, was the concern more just preparation and defense than anything else?
Young, inexperienced. Bob is a former catcher, puts a lot on his catchers. I don't know. Was Luis still reeling from some stuff that had happened in the past with the Padres? Was he intimidated by Bob? Did things? I really don't know. Luis I like him a lot. He doesn't necessarily like to talk or give a lot of insight there. But I have talked to a lot of people about this, and the reality is there's a lot of people in that organization who have believed in him and who have fought for him. And now he has in catching coach Brian Esposito and in Mike Schilt, some guys that really do believe in him, in addition to AJ Preller and others.
What's Esposito's background? He's not somebody we've talked about much.
I think he's a former manager at AAA, and he's a future manager in the major leagues.
Wow.
So that's what I believe. I think some other people see him that way. He's a player's guy. He's a hustler. He came over from the Pirates. There was thought he was going to be the Pirates manager. Derek Shelton got that, and at that point, I think you look at an organization, you go, Derek Shelton's probably going to be here for a while. Maybe it's time for me to move on somewhere if I want to move up in an organization. So that's how he ends up here a couple of years ago.
Nice.
And it was one of the things it was was a directive of, we want you to work with Campusano.
Which, again, if he continues hitting and if the Padres continue pitching well, you've got a guy on essentially a big league minimum contract who's putting up numbers that you don't see from catchers in the National League. Yep. You just don't. And maybe on a team that might be a little light hitting in left and center field and may have some holes just in terms of the lineup. I mean, if you could get production from a catcher, that's found money, man. Right? I mean, that's a bonus.
That's gives you 6 deep, and then what you get from Profar, your third baseman as of now. It'll be interesting to see how the roster shapes up when Manny Machado is playing third base, and whether they go get a DH or or what have you. But yeah, look, there are holes in every lineup. It's if you do get that found money you referred to from Campusano, that can help you limp through some other things. And then you're not focusing on what are Profar, Merrill not doing. You get to focus on when they do step up. It's a Dodgers situation because Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, obviously this year Shohei Ohtani, but like because JD Martinez in the past are carrying the team. Then all of a sudden you're noticing Kike Hernandez down there, Trace Thompson down there. And you're like, man, those guys, and you're looking like, yeah, they're okay, but you're focusing on how they're helping this lineup, how they're coming through, making things happen in situation because there are other strengths in the lineup. It's like we sometimes talk about a lineup like all 9 hitters are supposed to be great. It's just not going to happen.
Sure. No, you're 100% correct. Another guy who I think has been found money so far this year, and it seems like he does something every night to call attention to himself. That's Jake Cronenworth playing first base. Made another nice stab coming off the bag yesterday. It seems like he does that every once a game or so. Really rangy off of first base. And again, he's hitting. I mean, this is somebody who, might not be the ideal 3-hitter for the San Diego Padres, but he's producing so far this season. What have you seen from him?
He's hitting the heck out of the ball. You're right. But like the ideal number 3 hitter, I don't know. Take a look around and what is that, right? Like
Tony Gwynn is what that is. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. There'll be a Chrome Zone statue one day, but the guy he's hitting the ball hard. He knew where he messed up last year, trying to do too much, and this year. It's a real simple approach. The guy has incredible bat-to-ball skills. He does not swing and miss. He's hitting the ball hard this year. He's making incredibly hard outs. I know that I get a lot of emails from my older readers who, what's your batting average? Well, you know what? There's some new stats, and they do help us see, like, how a guy is playing. And I think Jake's expected batting average is up close to 400. It is early in the season. His hard hit rate is in the top 5% or whatever. Jake is and look, first baseman gets shafted on defense. Just throw out those numbers. Let what your eyes see. I can tell you that the Cardinals coaches might be voting for Jake Cronenworth for Gold Glove. And that's how it works, right? Like you have good games and coaches notice it and that's how you get the Gold Glove. You have a good series, and Jake was a big part of the Padres for this series, as he was all spring. And you know what? I think as he was in a sort of underrated way last year in his first full season as a first baseman.
Sure. He grounded into a double play on Tuesday, Kevin, and I saw your eyes light up a little, and you went, oh, that was hit hard. And you looked it up, and it was, 106.1 off the bat?
Yeah, and
something
it skipped
like
off
that?
the mound. And I will tell you this, and I talked to Jake a fair amount. There would have been, obviously the season wears on, you're going to get more frustrated. It's easier to stick to your approach in April, the beginning of April. There would have been a lot more frustration and angst, right? Last year. He wanted the team to win so bad. He wanted to be a contributor so bad. Like those things got to him a lot last year. And I sense a real intentionality about him just sticking with the process this year. And the process for Jake Cronenworth is very good.
How much bigger is he this year than he was last year?
Well, a little bit bigger in the tummy, a little bigger in the arms, but that's on purpose. And he said, I love eating, and I think it'll help me. And so, so he mixed up some things both at the plate so that he's more ready. And with the hands just right there, and also gained whatever it was, 10, 15 pounds, depending on, as he says, when he's weighed and what he had the night before. Sure.
Well, and again, when you're playing first base and not second base and shortstop and the outfield and everywhere else Jake Cronenworth has played as a Padre, you're allowed to put on a little weight, right? I mean, there's a reason not a whole lot of Major League first basemen look like Jake Cronenworth. Right? Most of them can put on some extra weight. So
yeah. And he made a joke yesterday when I asked, about the lunging catch he made. And look,
Yeah.
Xander struggled on some relays when he was a shortstop, and now he's doing the relays on double plays basically backward. He's like doing
Right.
it in like a mirror, like watching, or his iPhone's turned backward. That's how he's playing some aspects of second base now. And so there were a couple errant throws yesterday. One that Jake couldn't handle, caught him. It was just a weird hop, and then one that he made a good play, and he's like, yeah. I like to, try to use whatever flexibility I have left, like from his middle infielder days. He is I think the Padres think, I think people in the league think Jake is a very good first baseman.
And I mean, again, if after last year, if he becomes a league average or above league average first baseman, that's something the Padres will take.
Well, for sure. Again, put a shortstop everywhere, I look again, the lineup, I think, as they can use another hitter. They have been on the lookout for another hitter for forever. They probably will be till August if it doesn't happen sooner. Jake Cronenworth is a good member of he doesn't bring that lineup down if he's being Jake Cronenworth. Now, look, some people would argue, well, no, Jake Cronenworth is the guy you saw in 2023. Okay. So I think that he's not. Right.
Kevin, it's the Giants again. This time it's in San Francisco. Let's go a little bit through sort of what they're facing and what did you make of them last time? And are they who we think they are?
I don't know. Yeah, like they're a team that's going to be battling with the Padres for a wild card spot, perhaps if their pitching can be, good, which I think it can be, and if they're now that I hear myself say it, I'm saying if their pitching can be good and if their lineup can be good, wow, that's some insight, Kevin. That's really good.
If they can hit and pitch well, they'll be good. Yeah.
What am I trying to say about the Giants? It's that they have some good pieces, and I think together as a whole, their lineup and the way that they, do a lot of switching and stuff, and the way they play the matchups, and they will, because the manager doesn't have as much control as he does here. So you might see Bob Melvin doing a little bit more, and Bob loves to do that more. Bob lamented the fact to some extent that he had the big four in the set lineup. They like to mix and match up there or up here in the Bay Area. I do think that they can make it work, but things have to go right for the Giants. And I love this Jung-Hoo Lee. He seems to have a lot of Kim traits. Not to make some sort of stereotype, but he's got a really good eye once he figures out the fastball, which he does seem to be a little advanced on Ha-Sung back. It was bad in 2021. So Jordan Hicks, who starts tomorrow against Dylan Cease. What was it? It was five shutout innings.
5 shutouts, six strikeouts. Yeah.
So, and that was on Saturday. So what he and Cease, it's the only matchup. I think that was who he faced, Cease and Hicks, on Saturday, and they go again tomorrow. Then it's Michael King against, what is it? Is it Keaton Wynn? Keaton Wynn last year, I think, made his second major league appearance against the Padres, and it was going to be a bullpen game. And they brought him in like the fourth inning or the fifth inning, and he finished out the game. I think Juan Soto hit a home run, and Keaton Wynn allowed 1 run in 5 innings. He finished out the game. I think that was when the Giants took 3 of 4 or something like that. But like 3 of their games were bullpen games, and Keaton Wynn certainly helped that. And then Keaton Wynn shut them out for 5 innings of relief later in the season in San Diego. So they've scored 1 run, and it was Juan Soto home run against Keaton Wynn in 10 innings. And that's who's going against Michael King on Saturday up here. And then Matt Waldron gets his second start against Logan Webb. Yeah. Logan Webb on Sunday, and that'll be Webb's third start. He went 6 innings, 2 runs against the Padres, I believe, and then got roughed up by the Dodgers on Tuesday or Monday. And but Logan Webb is a very good pitcher. We will not see Blake Snell. Blake Snell will also, my understanding, not pitch against the Rays. Blake Snell, whether he's ready or not, was happy to avoid his past two teams. So we won't see Blake until September, maybe when the Padres have another semi-repeater against the Giants in September.
Wow, that's crazy. Kevin, and we've got just a couple more minutes left here. We've talked a little bit about individual Padres as a whole. You're getting to know this team. You're watching them every day. Is this about what you thought they'd be at this stage? Are there any nuances or any differences compared to what you were expecting? What do they do that surprises you?
Interesting question. I think it's a good question because I was pondering it last night, and then I ran out of words. I think I was about 2,400 words on the newsletter. I said, it's time to go to bed. And I was going to do something. And I also thought, well, maybe it's too early, but I had some interesting stats on pondering the question of where are they at, based on what they wanted to be. Fast start, right? Winning on the margins. A team that turns every at bat into a situation so that then they are better in what is traditionally called situational hitting. Well, they were 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position yesterday. You don't win very often when you do that, except for when you run and hit with a guy on first and that guy gets to third and then you get another hit. Except for when you draw 3 walks after a leadoff single. When you steal 3 bases, now only one of those helped them to a run. Or it didn't end up because they ended up getting all those walks. The kid who was pitching yesterday, who settled down nicely, but he was rough in the beginning. But they're doing these little things. I think they're playing fantastic defense. Don't look at the errors. There were some uncharacteristic errors by Tatis. I think they're playing really good defense. Mike Schilt manages. We've talked about that, man. He manages. And I do think they're playing sound baseball. They're 4-5. They were 5-4 after 9 games last year. Went to Atlanta, by the way, took 3 out of 4. And you thought, oh yeah, now this is where the Padres are going to take off. So fast start doesn't necessarily have to do with the record. They are leading the league. Now they played a couple more games, so they're up near the top of the league in 100 mile an hour exit velocity, balls in play. They are all traditional stats. They're near the top, but there's a lot of things they're doing in terms of base running and moving runners over. You get a little deeper into stuff, and they're up near the top of the league. And these types of things that you go, you know what? I think they have started pretty well. Yes, they've had some terrible offensive games. You know what else? They have 4 more run innings than anyone else. Now they played 2 more games, but they have scored 4 or 5 runs in 6 different innings already.
Wow.
It was breaking July by the time they had done that last year. And no one else in the league has done it more than twice. Maybe I didn't finish the math at 2 a.m., but I think maybe there was another team that got up to having done it 3 times. That shows you that it is a lineup that can fairly consistently, as they say, pass the baton. They're stringing together hits, walks, big hits, enough to have gotten 6 innings in which they scored at least 4 runs. That is so different than last year.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe a team that's less impressive on paper seems to be doing the little things a little bit better than last year's team did. Awesome. Kevin, before we let you go, take the people through Fernando Tatis's almost amazing play Tuesday night.
Oh my gosh. Did you understand how awesome I thought that play was?
I was sitting right next to you and we both went, oh my God, like at the same time. Oh my God. Yeah. And again, it did not result in an out, but it was still amazing.
It was one of those where your first reaction is, Toddy, how come you didn't make that play? And then you go, you almost made that play. And then you look up the stats. So Victor Scott second hits a double that you thought was going to be a triple at the start. This is one of the fastest young players in the league. And he does. He has a sprint speed over 30. That's your fastest, whatever, 5 feet or whatever. He has a sprint speed over 30 feet per second. He made it to second base, from home to second base in 7.79 seconds. That's one of the fastest times of the year. Toddy ran 55 feet to his right into the gap to get the ball. Because he was running so fast and had come so far, it took him a few extra steps to stop. Then He stops, doesn't get to set himself, makes an off-speed throw at 87 point something miles an hour on a hop, on the money to second base. And I just told you how fast this guy was running. Tatis almost got him. And by the way, Padres coaches swore that he was out because Scott came up off the bag for a second, but it wasn't enough to challenge it. But like, that guy almost had one of the fastest singles that was 180 feet, in the game. That was, go back and watch it. Go my newsletter. I had a link to the tweet. That was phenomenal.
Oh,